What if I told you that the greatest sign your life is about to change is that almost everything around you suddenly feels like it's falling apart? The breakthrough you've been praying for rarely arrives looking like success. It often arrives disguised as loss. By the end of this video, you'll recognize the 9 unmistakable signs that your next chapter has already begun, even if your current reality still tells you otherwise. Missing these signs could make you walk away from the very transformation you've waited years to experience. Have you recently felt disconnected from your old life? Have certain people disappeared without explanation? Do you feel like you're changing in ways you can't describe? If even one of these has happened to you, stay until the end. You may discover that what you've been calling a crisis is actually the doorway into your greatest chapter. And while you're watching, leave the word breakthrough in the comments. Sometimes acknowledging the beginning of a new season is the first step toward fully entering it. If this message is helping you see your journey in a completely different light, take a moment to subscribe and join this community. Every video here is designed to help you understand the hidden patterns behind transformation, emotional growth, and the deeper meaning behind life's turning points. And if someone comes to mind while listening, share this video with them. They may be standing at the edge of their own breakthrough without even realizing it. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the battle inside you has grown strangely quiet. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because something deeper has changed. For years, your greatest obstacle may have seemed to be difficult people, unfortunate circumstances, or constant setbacks. Yet the hidden conflict was never entirely outside you. It lived within the part of your mind that doubted every decision, feared every risk, and clung to familiar patterns even when they caused pain. This inner resistance quietly shaped your life, convincing you that safety was more important than growth and certainty more valuable than truth. One of the clearest signs that your breakthrough chapter has arrived is not the sudden appearance of success, but the gradual disappearance of this internal struggle. The voice that once questioned your worth begins to lose its authority. You no longer spend endless hours seeking permission to become who you already are. Instead of fighting yourself at every crossroads, you begin moving with a quiet confidence that cannot easily be explained. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. This shift often feels almost invisible at first. You stop reacting to every criticism. You no longer chase the approval that once controlled your choices. Situations that would have drained your energy months ago now seem incapable of pulling you back into old emotional cycles. The same storms may continue around you, but they no longer create the same chaos within you. The old identity depended on fear to survive. It whispered that change was dangerous and that staying small was the safest option. But when your breakthrough begins, that fearful identity starts losing its grip. You recognize those thoughts without automatically obeying them. You see anxiety as information rather than a command. Every time you choose courage over comfort, the old self becomes weaker while your authentic nature grows stronger. The remarkable truth is that external victories usually follow this invisible inner victory. Long before the world notices your transformation, your mind has already stopped standing in its own way, allowing your energy, decisions, and purpose to move in the same direction instead of pulling against each other. There is a moment in every profound transformation when life becomes unusually quiet. The invitations become fewer. Conversations that once filled your days begin to fade. Places that once felt familiar suddenly feel distant, as though you no longer belong there. At first, this isolation can feel like rejection. You may wonder whether you have done something wrong or whether life has forgotten you. Yet this unexpected distance is often one of the strongest signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived. Growth rarely begins in crowded spaces. It begins in silence. Before something new can take root, the old environment often loses its hold over you. The people, habits, and routines that once defined your identity no longer provide the same comfort. This can be deeply unsettling because the human mind naturally seeks familiarity, even when that familiarity limits its potential. What feels like loneliness may actually be the space required for a new version of yourself to emerge. Many people resist this season because they mistake it for failure. They try to reconnect with relationships they have already outgrown or return to patterns that no longer reflect who they are becoming. But every attempt to force the past back into the present only delays the transformation waiting ahead. The emptiness is not there to punish you, it is there to prepare you. Notice how your attention begins turning inward during this period. Instead of constantly searching for answers from others, you begin listening more carefully to your own thoughts. Hidden fears rise to the surface. Old dreams you abandoned quietly return. Questions you once avoided demand honest reflection. This inner dialogue is not a sign that you are lost. It is evidence that your deeper self is finally being heard above the noise of constant distraction. The remarkable truth is that expansion often requires separation. Nature follows this pattern everywhere. A seed disappears beneath the soil before it becomes a tree. A butterfly spends time hidden inside a cocoon before revealing its wings. What appears inactive from the outside is often the period of greatest internal change. When your breakthrough chapter approaches, isolation stops feeling like abandonment and begins revealing itself as protection. Life gently removes you from environments that can no longer support the person you are becoming, creating the quiet conditions where your next chapter can begin to grow with strength, clarity, and purpose. One of the most powerful signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived is something few people expect. It is the quiet collapse of the identity you spent years building. At first, this can feel deeply unsettling because the version of yourself you once relied on begins to lose its meaning. The habits, beliefs, and roles that once gave you a sense of certainty no longer fit. You may find yourself asking questions you never asked before. Who am I when I stop trying to impress everyone? Who am I without the masks I have worn for so long? These questions are not signs of confusion. They are signs that something false is falling away. For much of life, people unconsciously create identities to gain acceptance, avoid rejection, or protect themselves from emotional pain. They become the one who never says no, the one who always appears strong, the one who hides their true feelings to keep the peace. These roles may have once served a purpose, helping them navigate difficult experiences, but over time those protective patterns become invisible prisons. They demand constant energy to maintain, leaving little room for authenticity or genuine growth. As your breakthrough approaches, these old masks begin to crack. You no longer feel comfortable pretending to agree with everyone simply to avoid conflict. You stop chasing approval from people whose opinions once controlled your emotions. You become less interested in fitting into expectations and more committed to living in alignment with your inner truth. This shift is rarely dramatic. It unfolds through small but meaningful choices that slowly redefine your life. The people around you may notice the change before you do. Some will appreciate your growing honesty, while others may become uncomfortable because they benefited from the older version of you. This can create tension, but it also reveals which relationships were built on authenticity and which depended on your willingness to hide yourself. The collapse of a false identity often feels like losing something valuable, yet what is disappearing was never your true foundation. It was a structure built from fear, habit, and the need for external validation. As it falls, it creates space for something far more stable to emerge. Your authentic self no longer needs to perform, compete, or constantly prove its worth. It simply exists with quiet confidence, allowing your actions, decisions, and relationships to reflect who you truly are, rather than who you believed you had to become. Have you ever noticed how certain moments in life seem too meaningful to dismiss as mere coincidence? You think about someone you have not spoken to in years, and they suddenly reach out. You repeatedly encounter the same symbol, number, or message, just as you are wrestling with an important decision. A book falls into your hands at the exact moment its words answer a question you have carried in silence. These experiences often feel ordinary on the surface, yet they leave behind an unmistakable feeling that something deeper is quietly unfolding. One of the clearest signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived is the increasing presence of these meaningful coincidences. Most people move through life believing that everything happens by random chance. They rush from one obligation to the next without noticing the subtle patterns appearing around them. But when you begin changing from within, your awareness also changes. You start recognizing connections that once escaped your attention. Life seems to communicate through unexpected encounters, timely opportunities, and moments that carry a strange sense of familiarity. It is not necessarily that the world has become different. It is that your perception has become more attentive and more open to meaning. These moments often appear when you are standing at the edge of personal transformation. As your old identity begins to dissolve, your mind becomes less distracted by fear and more receptive to insight. Instead of forcing every answer through endless analysis, you begin trusting the quiet signals that point you toward growth. A conversation overheard by accident may inspire a life-changing decision. An unexpected delay may protect you from the wrong path. What once seemed like inconvenience begins revealing hidden purpose. This does not mean every coincidence carries a secret message or predicts the future. Wisdom comes from remaining thoughtful rather than becoming consumed by every unusual event. The value lies not in superstition but in paying closer attention to the deeper movement of your own life. These experiences encourage reflection, helping you notice what resonates with your authentic direction instead of blindly following old habits. As your breakthrough chapter unfolds, these meaningful patterns become gentle reminders that transformation is rarely chaotic beneath the surface. Even when the road ahead remains uncertain, life has a remarkable way of placing people, opportunities, and moments before you exactly when you are finally prepared to recognize them, giving you the confidence to keep moving toward the person you were always meant to become. There comes a point in every genuine transformation when the loudest voice in your life is no longer the one coming from the outside. It is the quiet voice within. For years, you may have searched for answers in the opinions of other people, hoping someone else could tell you which path to take, who to trust, or what decision would finally bring peace. Every choice became a negotiation between your own feelings and the expectations surrounding you. But one of the strongest signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived is that your inner voice begins to carry more weight than the noise of the world. This change does not happen overnight. It develops slowly, often after disappointment has taught you that external validation cannot provide lasting certainty. Advice from others may still be valuable, but you no longer depend on it to define your direction. Instead of immediately asking what everyone else thinks, you begin asking yourself a more important question: what feels deeply true to me? That simple shift marks the beginning of real inner authority. As your intuition grows stronger, your decisions become less driven by fear. You notice that certain opportunities create a sense of quiet clarity, while others leave you feeling uneasy, even if they appear attractive on the surface. You start recognizing the difference between excitement fueled by ego and peace rooted in authenticity. This awareness cannot always be explained with logic, yet it consistently guides you toward choices that align with your deeper values. People around you may not understand this transformation. Some may accuse you of changing or becoming distant because you no longer allow every opinion to shape your life. Yet you are not becoming closed-minded. You are becoming more discerning. You listen with respect, but you no longer abandon your own wisdom simply to avoid disagreement or gain approval. This heightened intuition also changes how you relate to everyday experiences. You sense when a conversation is genuine and when it is merely performance. You recognize environments that nourish your spirit and those that quietly drain your energy. Instead of forcing yourself to remain where you no longer belong, you develop the courage to walk away without resentment. The greatest breakthrough is not the ability to predict the future. It is the ability to trust yourself in the present. When your inner voice becomes clearer than the endless noise around you, you stop living according to fear, pressure, or expectation. You begin making choices from a place of quiet confidence, knowing that the deepest guidance has been within you all along, patiently waiting for the moment you were finally ready to listen. One of the most revealing signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived is the quiet transformation of your relationships. Without warning, certain people begin fading from your life. Conversations become less frequent. Invitations stop coming. The connections that once seemed permanent suddenly feel forced or strangely empty. At the same time, unexpected individuals begin entering your world, often when you are no longer searching for them. At first, this shift can feel confusing, even painful. You may wonder why relationships that once felt meaningful are no longer moving in the same direction. Yet this change is rarely accidental. It reflects the transformation taking place within you. Every relationship is built upon a certain version of who you are. Some people know you as the one who always sacrifices your own needs. Others know you as the one who avoids conflict, constantly seeks approval, or remains silent to keep everyone comfortable. As you begin to grow, those familiar roles no longer fit. You start speaking with greater honesty, You establish healthier boundaries. You become less willing to betray yourself simply to maintain peace. The moment this happens, relationships built upon your old patterns naturally begin to shift. Some people will celebrate your growth because they value the real person beneath the mask. Others may resist it because your transformation challenges the expectations they have placed upon you. They were comfortable with the version of you that never questioned, never changed, and never asked for more. When you begin living more authentically, their discomfort often has little to do with you and everything to do with the role they expected you to continue playing. At the same time, life has a remarkable way of introducing new people whose values align with the person you are becoming. These connections often feel different from the beginning. There is less pressure to perform, less need to prove yourself, and more space for honesty, respect, and mutual growth. They do not require you to hide parts of yourself in order to belong. Instead, they encourage you to become even more authentic. This does not mean every relationship that ends was unhealthy, nor does every new connection guarantee lasting significance. The deeper lesson is that growth naturally reshapes your environment. As your inner world changes, your outer world begins reflecting that transformation. The people who remain are those capable of walking beside your evolving self, while those who leave often create the very space needed for healthier, more meaningful relationships to enter your life, supporting the breakthrough that is already unfolding within you. There comes a moment in every genuine transformation when you stop asking one exhausting question: why is this happening to me? In its place, a different question quietly emerges: what is this trying to teach me? That simple shift marks one of the clearest signs that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived. The challenges in your life may not disappear overnight, but the way you experience them changes completely. What once felt like punishment begins revealing itself as preparation. For a long time, difficulties may have seemed like proof that you were on the wrong path. Every setback felt personal. Every rejection appeared to confirm your deepest fears. You may have believed that life was working against you, placing obstacle after obstacle in your way. But as your awareness expands, you begin noticing something remarkable. The greatest lessons often arrive disguised as the greatest disappointments. The very experiences that once threatened to break you quietly become the experiences that shape your strength. This change in perspective does not mean you suddenly enjoy pain or pretend that suffering is easy. Instead, you develop the ability to look beyond the immediate discomfort. A failure becomes an opportunity to uncover hidden weaknesses that success would have allowed you to ignore. A difficult conversation teaches you the importance of honesty. A closed door forces you to explore possibilities you would never have considered otherwise. Every challenge carries a lesson, but only those willing to reflect can receive it. You also begin trusting your own resilience. Instead of fearing every obstacle, you recognize that each one is expanding your character. The pressure that once felt unbearable starts revealing abilities you never knew you possessed. Patience grows where frustration once ruled. Courage appears where fear once held authority. Wisdom begins replacing the need for constant certainty. Interestingly, the challenges themselves may not become smaller. What changes is the person facing them. Problems that once overwhelmed you now become opportunities to practice the qualities you have been developing. You stop measuring your progress by the absence of struggle and begin measuring it by the way you respond when struggle appears. This is the hidden purpose behind life's most difficult seasons. They are not sent merely to test your endurance, but to awaken the parts of you that comfort could never reveal. When every obstacle becomes a teacher instead of an enemy, you are no longer trapped by circumstances. You are being shaped by them, and that quiet transformation is one of the strongest indications that your breakthrough is no longer somewhere in the distant future. It has already begun. Perhaps the most surprising sign that your breakthrough chapter has finally arrived is not something the world can immediately see. It is not a promotion, a sudden opportunity, or public recognition. Instead, it is a quiet certainty that begins growing within you. Nothing around you may appear dramatically different, yet deep inside, something has settled. The constant urgency to force every outcome starts fading. The endless need to know exactly how everything will unfold begins losing its grip. In its place comes a calm that feels unfamiliar but undeniably real. This deep sense of inner certainty often appears long before external success ever arrives. For much of life, people search for confidence by waiting for visible results. They believe they will feel secure after reaching a goal, receiving validation, or finally proving themselves to others. Yet genuine transformation follows the opposite path. Inner certainty comes first. External change simply reflects what has already taken place within. The breakthrough begins in the unseen world of your thoughts, beliefs, and identity before it becomes visible in your circumstances. This certainty does not mean you suddenly possess every answer. There will still be unanswered questions, unexpected setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. The difference is that these experiences no longer shake the foundation of who you are. You stop confusing temporary circumstances with permanent truth. A delay no longer convinces you that your future has been denied. A setback no longer causes you to abandon your purpose. You understand that progress is rarely a straight line and that lasting growth often unfolds quietly before anyone notices. As this inner confidence grows, your actions begin changing naturally. You become less reactive and more intentional. Instead of rushing into every opportunity out of fear of missing out, you choose with greater patience and clarity. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's timeline because you no longer measure your worth by external milestones. The need to constantly prove yourself fades, replaced by the quiet discipline of becoming the person you were meant to be. Others may not immediately understand this change. They might mistake your calmness for complacency or your patience for hesitation. Yet what they cannot see is that your strength no longer depends on applause or approval. It is rooted in something far deeper than circumstances. This quiet certainty is often the final signal that your breakthrough has already begun. Before the world celebrates your success, before opportunities fully unfold, and before your efforts receive visible rewards, your inner world has already shifted into harmony. And once that harmony is established, your choices, your energy, and your direction begin working together with a confidence that no obstacle can permanently silence. The truth is, a breakthrough rarely announces itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, hidden beneath moments that many people mistake for confusion, loneliness, or uncertainty. The end of inner resistance, the unexpected season of isolation, the collapse of old identities, meaningful coincidences, a stronger intuition, changing relationships, challenges that become teachers, and finally, that unshakable inner certainty. None of these signs may seem extraordinary on their own, but together they reveal something remarkable. They tell the story of a person who is no longer becoming who the world expected them to be. They are becoming who they were always meant to become. If you recognize these signs in your own life, resist the temptation to turn back simply because the path feels unfamiliar. Every meaningful transformation requires leaving behind a version of yourself that can no longer carry you into the future. What feels like an ending is often the quiet beginning of a chapter far greater than the one you are leaving behind. Remember, the greatest changes are almost always invisible before they become undeniable. A tree grows its roots long before anyone admires its branches. A sunrise begins while the world is still wrapped in darkness. In the same way, your life may already be shifting beneath the surface, even if your circumstances have not fully caught up. Do not measure your progress only by what you can see. Measure it by the peace you now carry, the wisdom you have gained, and the courage that continues guiding your next step. Perhaps the breakthrough you have been waiting for is not somewhere far ahead. Perhaps it began the moment you stopped fighting yourself, trusted your inner voice, and chose growth over fear. Every challenge, every loss, and every quiet season has been shaping you for this moment. The chapter ahead is not asking you to become someone new. It is inviting you to fully embrace the person who has been waiting beneath the surface all along. If this message resonated with you, write "New Chapter" in the comments. It is a simple way of declaring that you are no longer defined by your past, but by the future you are courageous enough to step into. And if you found value in this reflection, subscribe and join us for more journeys into the hidden patterns of personal transformation, inner growth, and the extraordinary potential that emerges when you finally become aligned with your true self. Until next time, keep moving forward, because your greatest chapter may already be unfolding, one quiet step at a time.